Primary focus was on the people we had lost, because that was our greatest concern. And as the years passed, and as the latency period passed for those illnesses that would now affect us, our concern has shifted not only to the people we've lost, but to the people we've lost since, and the people that are now struggling. Obviously, these last 2 or 3 years have been overwhelming. It appears that the latency period for cancer, as well as the effectiveness of cancer treatment, is starting to reach its end. And just like Andy said, my father is one of those people diagnosed with cancer over 8 years ago. And despite having a very serious illness that attacked multiple parts of his body, the efforts of the World Trade Center monitoring program, as well as the efforts of the medical treatment that was afforded to him, made a dramatic impact on his quality of life. And that dramatically impacted our lives, the lives of my kids, the lives of my brother's kids, and the fact that he could enjoy so many more years of his life, not just being alive, but actually living. We've recently added $600 million to the Zadroga Big Bill funding so that people would have access to this care. We are never going to be able to undo this exposure, but we do have the ability and the obligation to limit the effects of this for as long as humanly possible so that people can live fruitful lives. Not just firefighters, not just police officers, everyone, every civilian, every person that was affected by this tragedy who put forth an effort to try to make life better, to try to wrap this incident up, to try to create a safer environment south of Canal Street, and to let us move on from this very tragic event. Unfortunately, as Andy said, we are at 341. My guess is we may exceed that even before the anniversary. We appreciate that you continue to come back every year and keep these people in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep in mind that without treatment, without funding, the lives of these people that have already been cheated or disrupted will become dramatically worse. And as Andy said, my father went on the wall yesterday. It is a great honor to be remembered. It is a great honor to be part of the fire department family that never forgets. But I don't know that everyone else is afforded that same opportunity, so I think we need to keep all of them in our thoughts and prayers and make sure that nobody who was there ever forgets. Thank you.
Thank you. You have any questions? Yes.
Just for Jimmy, can you address what you think it means that we're at that threshold? As you indicated, it could be any day, it could be by Monday, that number, that unimaginable number, will soon be second to the total that has happened in the 22 years?
To some degree, it's tragic because, you know, obviously the efforts that were put forth were oftentimes put forth with not exactly all of the proper equipment could have needed, and at the same time, people made great personal sacrifice knowing there was a very high risk. And unfortunately, this is how exposures develop. You take a very large acute exposure. For us, we spanned it out almost a calendar year. So we took a large acute exposure and made it a large chronic exposure. We didn't have decon facilities that met the challenge of what we were up against. We certainly lost a lot of structure, both in the fire department and in city government. So it's hard to kind of organize something that you've never been a part of. And it was the largest attack on American soil, certainly in New York City, if not since Pearl Harbor. And so it's just tragic that this many people are now succumbing to those ailments after making such a valiant effort in trying to save those that were immediately affected.
Do you think the Adams administration should release the list of what was known to be in the air that they have yet to release?
I'm not sure the necessity of that. I'm not sure that anyone is uncertain that we knew we were being exposed to something. I'm not sure that that hasn't already been proven. If someone thinks there's value in it, that it would prove a further point. My most important concern, my total objective, I believe Andy's total objective is we need more funding. I'm telling you that the difference in my father's treatment is being affected with cancer is the absolute worst thing that can happen to a human. Worrying about how to pay for it is probably worse than that. And people historically have declined treatment when they can't afford it. And when you can't get access in which the Trade Center provides today, you don't go. And when you don't go, as you could see, what happened to people during COVID is they allowed those cancers to kind of pick up speed. And what happened when that treatment wasn't available, those cancers developed to a point where they couldn't be controlled. And so for that reason, the most important thing, I believe we all know that where the contamination came from. I think we all know that some of that evidence maybe wasn't immediately available or told to us, but most importantly, we need funding.
Nia Clark from New York One. I wonder, piggybacking piggybacking off of what you said about knowledge of exposure during that day, did you ever ask your father or any of the other firefighters, had they known just how bad and extensive the illnesses would be, would they do it all over again?
I think I speak for everybody up here. I think we took a job that we knew that would have high risk and high exposure. Obviously, if you ever drove in a city bus from here to Shea Stadium at the time and you saw the particulate matter floating around the bus for the entire 45-minute ride back there, you knew there was trouble. But since we took this obligation to respond, since we took this obligation to recover our civilians and our brothers in the and sisters who had responded, I'm not sure that we had any other choice. I think we knowingly went there because we thought we had an obligation. And looking backwards now and trying to say, should we have done something different, I'm not sure there was something else that could have been done.
Why is it so important to keep these stats at the forefront of the public's mind as we're going into the 22nd anniversary? And do you feel like people are forgetting?
Well, you know, you have an anniversary to remember, you know, what happened then. We also use this opportunity to remind people that it is ongoing. The numbers are staggering. 343 times 2 is almost 700 people. That's about 6-7% of the entire department at the time. Is you know, it's costing their life that day, one day. 6-7% of the entire department in one day, and it has dragged out over the years. It's important to bring that up. It's important to let people know that their neighbor may be someone who's suffering from this. It's for them. It's still ongoing. We see the images every year they put on TV. It brings you back to that day. You know, for some of us, it happens a lot more often. You know, we've attended 40 or so funerals this year for the members that we've lost, and we know it's not going to end. So for us, it's every day or every week that we're going to another funeral. But for the general public, we have this press conference to remind everyone that it is ongoing and that funding is still needed. And we never forget, and we're asking that the public also never forget. And we don't think they have. Yes?
Are you surprised at how hard it is to get this funding? I mean, your civil servants, you did a very selfless thing, or the firefighters who responded that day did a very selfless thing. It would seem that it should be a no-brainer.
Well, as we know, Washington is a very frustrating place. The Zadroga bill and the medical care from the World Trade Center health care program, there are actually members living in almost every congressional district that are recipients of the health care. And why there are some politicians that make it hard to get the funding and why they involve this bill and this health care program in the horse trading of Washington is disgusting. But unfortunately, it's our job to wade into that and hold people accountable for it and make sure the funding is there. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice job. Thank you. Yes.
Way to get